כן.
In the commentary of Rav Kapach on the Mishnah Torah, when it comes to Hilchos Beis HaBechira, basically his first note refers to a Sicha. He writes on the title, Hilchos Beis HaBechira, he writes to look in the Likutei Sichos in, I think he calls it the Kovetz Yein Malchus. And he says there, he says from the Rebbe, and there you'll see, he says an explanation of why the Rambam called this section Hilchos Beis HaBechira, not Hilchos Beis HaMikdash. And he says that the Rebbe gives, I think he uses a tam na'eh, like an excellent reason. And he says it's according to the paths of the thinking of Chassidus. Something like Shvilei Machshavas HaChassidus, something like that. And he says, he finishes off his note, he says, he doesn't tell you what the Rebbe says there, but he says, the Rashi Tevis, Divrei Pi Chacham Chaim, that the words of the Chacham are, I don't know, excellent, acceptable, something like that. So before I tell you what the Rebbe said in that Yein Malchus, first I think I want to give you B'derech Efshar what I think Rabbi Kapach is doing. Because the Yein Malchus is not the Sichas like the Sichas that we're used to, I don't know, but the Sichas that go through a question, let's say from the Achronim from 100 years ago or from more, and how the Rebbe answers it, and this sheet and that sheet, or even earlier. In Yein Malchus, it's basically like hoirois that could come out of every, what the Rebbe said when the hoirois that came out of the Shir Yomi of the Rambam when the Rebbe Favrem, whatever it was. And those hoirois are mostly b'derech hamusar. They're not. I mean, if I can say, I don't know if you're allowed to say such a thing, but they're not so much. They're not the same style, let's say, as the long Nigla Sichas. And I think that the reason, before I go on, that the reason why Rabbi Kapach is quoting it is because Sof Kol Sof in the Rambam there's also much Musar, plenty of types of Musar. I mean, I can't think of any off the bat except the famous one who says not only Shevet Levi but every Jew that's like that one. But I remember one time I downloaded a book called Musrei HaRambam. It was by one of the, I don't know if it was a grandson or of the Chasam Sofer. And there it was a whole book of just pulling out those Musar parts of the Rambam. So there's material there. So what I think is that wherever there's a chance to say a Hira on the Rambam, if there's like a bit of a question and there's a suggestion that maybe the Rambam is saying something more than the literal, and then the Rabbi Kapach is going to look for that. If he sees it in the Rebbe's writing, he's going to say, take it, because it's something that fits. It fits in. It's not. It's something that fits in with the Rambam. That's just b'derech efshar. I think that's why Rabbi Kapach is pointing to it. So back to the main line. So the Rebbe has two explanations in that Yein Malchus on why it's called Hilchos Beis HaBechira, and the two explanations are, you'll see in a way, opposite each other. The first one, he emphasizes the idea of Bechira, and he says that I'll say it in my own words, but that Bechira is deeper than Kedusha. In other words, it's because of the Bechira that in this case the Kedusha is forever, is absolute. And for example, where the Rambam writes that the Kedusha of Yerushalayim and the Beis HaMikdash is never going to become batal, so the expression the Rambam uses is that it's the Kedushas Mipnei HaShechina, and the Shechina Eina B'Teila. So that's how the Rebbe learns it. That means it's because of this absolute Bechira of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And for that reason, the Kedusha doesn't become batal. So it comes out that he says the Kedusha itself depending on the circumstances, the kedusha could be there, the kedusha could come, kedusha could go. But if it's because of the bechira, then the kedusha is also absolute, just like the bechira is absolute, just like the bechira of Am Yisrael is absolute. But here, the bechira of the Beis Hamikdash is absolute. So that's basically the first explanation. Now that I see Chanina here, I want to say, I want to give an example off the topic of a difference where I think you can see the difference between like the Hoira of seeing the Beis Hamikdash as part of a Bechira, or seeing it as not a Beis Bechira, but you remind me, because I remember when we were in school, they used to have 1 year, they had the rabbis of the shuls come and speak. Like a lunch and learn, they would say something about the parsha each time. So I don't remember who the rabbis were, but we brought, each week was a different rabbi. And I remember one time, it was probably Parshas Truma or something, and we got there, we were sitting down, and all of a sudden, 2 nuns come into the room, and they're ready, they want to hear the class. Okay, the rabbi didn't say anything. I think it was advertised somewhere. Remember, something like that? So anyway, so the rabbi started to speak, and he was talking about the Beis Hamikdash. He said, here in the Azora you could go, the Ezra's Kahanim you can't go unless you have to do an avodah, like do smicha or something like that. And then Bein Ulun and Mizbeach, even the Kahanim can't go unless they bow down and then are doing something, but they can't go for nothing. And then in the Heichal, for sure they can't go unless they're doing one of the things that are in the Heichal, because in the Heichal you have you burn the incense, or you light the menorah, or you need a few Kahanim to take out the Lechem Hapanim, at the same time. One has to push, one has to pull. Anyway, he was going through the whole thing. He says, in the Heichal Koshim, there nobody goes except the Kohen Gadol. I mean, he was, whatever, that was his speech. Anyway, he finishes his speech, and one of the nuns says, they have a question. She says something like this. She says, till now, she thought the temple was destroyed. That's what she heard, like 1900 years ago. And now, she hears that it's still going strong. Everything is still working there, So, what the rabbi answered, I don't remember. What everyone said, I don't remember. Anyway, and so, but I'm saying, but that a little bit, even if the rabbi was, the way he spoke about it in the present tense, it's reminiscent of this, of the idea that the Bechira is forever. And the second explanation that the Rebbe gave there, which I think is a little bit of the opposite, he said something like this. He said, Beit HaBechira is the Beit HaBechira, to choose, to choose a place, like to choose Beit HaBechira, to choose one place, you have to have a set to choose from. If there's only one choice, then it's not called Bechira. And to have a set, or to have a group, the Avodah is, or the Hira is, it sounded funny, but I think this is what it said, is that we have to elevate or educate all the other batim that they should be somehow, in some way, have a kedusha. If they're divrei reshus, they should have a kedusha. If they're worse than divrei reshus, they should elevate to have a kedusha. And that's the hira. It's called Beis HaBechira to teach you the opposite. Not that the bechira is like absolute and whatever, but to teach you that everything else has to be elevated so that you can have so that this will represent, there'll be like a choice. And I think it was, I'm not saying I understood it 100%, but it was, I think that's what he said. That's what the Rebbe said. And I think those are the two explanations that the Rebbe gave there. Then after, okay, so that's what I think the two things. But I'm thinking, so what's an example? I don't know. I mean, what's an example of that? I'm not sure. But I saw something very interesting. I don't know, maybe not very, very interesting, but interesting. That, whatever it was, 50, 60 years ago, they started publishing the Meiri on Shas from one single manuscript. And the Miri called his parish Beis HaBechira. Right. So why did he call his parish in Shas Beis HaBechira? So he says in the introduction, I only have one volume, actually I have 2 volumes, but the one volume I have is Brachas, that's where the introduction is. So the Miri writes in his introduction there on Brachas that he's calling it Beis HaBechira because he's, all the halachas, he's picking out the ones that have like no machlokes from the Gemara, that's clear, he doesn't want to get into stuff that's undecided. And he says, and similarly with the Goinim, and he calls them the Achronim after, he's not going to go very much into machlokes. And he says, and the proof that that's called Bechira is that the Shas calls Masechtes Eidios, where they're basically the same Mishnayos that you have everywhere else, but in Masechta Eidios, the Tanoim are giving Eidios that this is the way or this was the way, and it's like a clear, it's so to speak a clear without, I mean there's probably machlekes in there too, but it's written in like a clear way. So I was thinking, but it's far-fetched, but somehow this is the second kind of Bechira I was thinking, but maybe, I think it's far-fetched, but then in other words you have a bunch of things, you have a whole Shas of Mishnayos, but of them you're picking, they're basically all equal, but you're picking ones for some reason, you're picking ones that are in some ways clearer than the other ones, or something like that, in some ways more straightforward, but whatever he's doing in his commentary based on Bechira, but he's saying that's called Bechirta, just like Masechta Eidios is called Bechirta. So I was thinking maybe that's the, I don't know really if you can say that, but the idea somehow would be is to elevate or whatever it is, to bring out the good in all the other batim, so that there'll be some type of, I mean you can't say they're going to compare to the Beis HaMikdash, but somehow you'll be able to bring them up and elevate them, and then you'll have a Bechira, but your avodah will be to improve, to pick up everything else. So I see I ran out of time very early, but that's all for now.
Still have 7 minutes.
Yoda, why don't you sing for us?
Shkoyach, Chaim, Shkoyach. But everybody says to, meantime, the 7 minutes that you have, you can keep tzedakah for 7 minutes continuously. The unbelieved die.